My sister excluded me from her wedding after I raised her for 22 years alone, but when her fiancé discovered the truth, the wedding was canceled, and now she's begging for my forgiveness. I'm 32 years old. I work in accounting for a mid-sized company, and almost a year ago, something happened that basically destroyed me completely, but at the same time, made me realize a lot of things about my life and about people I thought I knew. The thing is, my younger sister, Victoria, was getting married, and I, who literally raised her since she was a baby, wasn't invited to her wedding. Yeah, you read that right. The girl I fed, dressed, took to school every day for years, told me I couldn't go to her wedding because it would be awkward for our parents. Our parents, who, by the way, abandoned us when I was 10 and she was barely 2, and who showed up out of nowhere 6 months before the wedding like nothing had happened. I guess I should start at the beginning, right? When I was 10 and Victoria was 2, our parents decided that their dream of starting a business was more important than us. I don't remember exactly how the conversation went. I mean, I was a kid, but I do remember perfectly the day they left us at my paternal grandparents' house and said they'd be back soon. They never came back. Well, not for 22 years at least. My grandparents, who were already elderly, like 65 and 68 I think, suddenly found themselves raising 2 little girls. They were amazing. Honestly, they did the best they could with what they had. But they died when I was 18 and Victoria was barely 10. My grandfather first, from a heart attack, and my grandmother like a year later, basically from sadness according to what the doctor told me, although officially it was heart failure. So there I was, at 18 years old, trying to finish high school, and suddenly turned into the legal guardian of my 10-year-old sister because there was no one else. Our parents were still whereabouts unknown, or rather, they didn't care about us enough to come back even when their own parents died. I had to get a part-time job at a coffee shop while I finished school, then another job at night cleaning offices. I slept like 4 hours a day, but Victoria needed to eat. She needed clothes, she needed school supplies, she needed a house to live in. I skipped college at first because I couldn't pay for my education and support her at the same time. You know, it's not like we had much money saved up. For years, basically, it was just the 2 of us against the world. I took her to school, went to all her parent-teacher meetings, even though technically I was her sister. The teachers were understanding, helped her with homework, cooked for her, taught her everything a mother should teach her. When she got her first period, I was the one who explained everything to her. When she had her first heartbreak, I was the one who held her all night while she cried. When she graduated from high school, I was the one who was there screaming her name louder than anyone. Eventually, I managed to take night classes and got my accounting degree when I was like 26 and got this decent job I have now. But the decision I made was thinking about Victoria first, making sure she had everything I never had. The relationship between us was amazing, or so I thought. We were more than sisters, we were best friends, we were everything to each other. She called me almost every day. When she moved to study graphic design in another city, she told me everything about her classes, her friends, her dates. When she met Christopher, her boyfriend at the time, I was the first person she introduced him to. Christopher seemed like a good guy, like 26 years old, worked in marketing for a big company, and you could tell he really loved Victoria. I liked him. He treated her with respect, and that was all that mattered to me. Everything changed like a year and a half ago when our parents, out of nowhere, decided it was time to reconnect with their daughters. They showed up one day at Victoria's door. You don't know how they got her address? I guess it's not that hard these days. With flowers and apologies, and this whole story about how their business had failed at first but then succeeded and blah blah blah, but that they always thought about us, that the remorse was killing them, all that garbage. Victoria called me super excited, literally crying with happiness, saying that Mom and Dad had come back, that they wanted to get to know us again, that they wanted to be a family. I, obviously, didn't feel the same way. I mean, these people abandoned us. Period. They weren't there when my grandfather died, when my grandmother died, when I was working 18 hours a day to support Victoria, when she was sick and I spent entire nights at the hospital with her because she had pneumonia, and we didn't have decent health insurance. They weren't there for any of that. And now that Victoria was already a functional adult, that I had already done all the hard work, now they wanted to be parents? No, thanks. I made it very clear to Victoria and to them that they could have whatever relationship they wanted, but that I wasn't interested. I went to a family dinner that Victoria organized so we could get to know each other again, basically for her sake, but it was super awkward and horrible, and I didn't see them again after that. Victoria, however, decided to give them a chance. She started spending more time with them, calling them mom and dad again like nothing had happened, visiting them at their new house, which, by the way, was quite big and fancy. So I guess their business did succeed eventually. Good for them. I tried to be understanding. Like, it's her decision. It's her life. If she wants to forgive them, that's fine. But I couldn't understand how she did it so easily. Every time we talked on the phone, she mentioned something about mom and dad, and I just changed the subject because it hurt. It made me angry. I don't know. It was a mix of many emotions that even I couldn't process well. About 6 months after they reappeared, Victoria called me super excited to tell me that Christopher had proposed and that obviously she had said yes. I was happy for her. Genuinely happy. I loved her so much and wanted her to be happy. She asked me if I could help her plan the wedding, and I said yes. Of course, whatever she needed. We spent weeks talking about dresses, flowers, venues, guests, all that stuff you do when you plan a wedding. I automatically assumed I would be her maid of honor. I mean, it was obvious, right? I had basically been her mother her entire life. But then, like 3 months before the wedding, Victoria stopped answering my calls as frequently. When we talked, the conversations were shorter, more superficial. I asked her several times if everything was okay, and she said yes, that she was just busy with the preparations and work. I believed her because, well, planning a wedding is stressful. I get it. What I didn't know was that she was avoiding me because she didn't know how to tell me what she was about to tell me. A month before the wedding, Victoria asked me to meet for coffee. I thought it was to finalize details or something. We sat in this coffee shop near her apartment, and she was super nervous, wouldn't look me in the eyes, and I started worrying, thinking that maybe she had broken up with Christopher or something bad had happened. But no. What she said was worse, she told me. And I swear these were her exact words. Amanda, I love you very much, and I'll always be grateful for everything you did for me. But I can't invite you to my wedding. I just sat there, not understanding. Like, what? Is this a joke? But she kept explaining that mom and dad were going to be there, that they wanted to be part of her special day, and that my presence was going to make things awkward for them because I had basically made it clear to them that I didn't forgive them and didn't want to have a relationship with them. I couldn't believe it. I literally couldn't process what I was hearing. I said to her, "Wait, are you telling me I can't go to your wedding because it makes them uncomfortable? The people who abandoned us? The people who weren't there when we needed them most?" And she said she was very sorry, but it was her decision, that she didn't want drama on her special day, that she hoped I would understand. I asked her what Christopher had said about this, and she admitted that he didn't know the whole story, that he thought I was traveling or something, and that's why I wasn't going to be able to attend. She had lied to her future husband about me. I left that coffee shop feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. The next few weeks were horrible. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep well. I couldn't concentrate at work. I lost like 5 kilos. My friends told me I should confront Victoria, that I should tell Christopher the truth. But I couldn't. I didn't want to ruin her day, even though she had ruined everything between us. Part of me still loved her, still wanted to protect her, and that made everything even more painful. On the wedding day, I stayed home crying. I didn't go, obviously, but I was checking social media like a masochist, seeing the photos that guests were posting. Victoria looked beautiful in her dress. Our parents were there, smiling like they were parents of the year. Everything was perfect on the surface. But then, like 2 hours after the ceremony started, my phone started exploding with messages. Lauren, Victoria's best friend, wrote to me saying she needed to call me urgently. When we talked, she was crying and screaming, and I could barely understand what she was saying. But basically, she explained that Christopher had found out the truth. Turns out one of Christopher's cousins, who happened to know me because we had met at a work event years ago, was at the wedding and asked why I wasn't there, knowing that Victoria was my sister. When they told him I was traveling, he said that was weird because he had literally seen me 2 days before in the city. That made Christopher start asking questions, and eventually one of Victoria's uncles, who I never liked but who was at least honest, told him the whole truth. He told him that I had basically raised Victoria, that our parents had abandoned us and had just come back recently, and that Victoria had excluded me from the wedding so as not to make the parents uncomfortable. Lauren told me that Christopher, in the middle of the reception, asked for the microphone to make a toast. Everyone thought it was going to be something nice and romantic, but instead, he gave a speech about honesty and family and loyalty. He said something like, "I just found out that the most important person in my girlfriend's life, the person who raised her, who sacrificed everything for her, isn't here today because my girlfriend chose the people who abandoned her over the person who never left her. I can't marry someone who has those values. I'm sorry." And he left. He literally left his own wedding. The guests were in shock. Victoria was crying hysterically. Our parents tried to follow Christopher, but he didn't want to talk to anyone. Our parents, true to their style, also left shortly after. They didn't console Victoria. They didn't stay to support her. They just left because the situation was too awkward for them. Again, they chose their comfort over their daughter. Victoria was left there in her wedding dress, surrounded by uncomfortable guests, with her best friend trying to console her. Lauren said it was the saddest thing she'd ever seen in her life. About an hour later, Victoria called me. I saw her name on the screen and hesitated whether to answer, but in the end I did. She was crying so hard she could barely breathe, saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," over and over again, begging me to come get her, to help her, to forgive her. And I don't know. I just sat there listening to her cry and I felt nothing. I mean, I felt many things, but at the same time, like I was numb. I told her I wasn't going to come, that she had made her decision and now she had to deal with the consequences, and I hung up. I know it sounds cold, and it probably was. But at that moment, I couldn't do anything else. I had nothing left to give. The following weeks were chaos, from what I learned later. Christopher wasn't answering Victoria's calls. Our parents basically disappeared again. What a surprise. And she had to cancel the honeymoon, return gifts, explain to people what had happened. Lauren kept me updated because we were still talking, and she told me that Victoria was destroyed, that she wasn't leaving her apartment, that she'd had to take time off work because she was having panic attacks. 2 weeks after the canceled wedding, Victoria showed up at my door. I almost didn't recognize her. She had lost weight, had horrible dark circles, looked 10 years older. She asked me if we could talk, and I, after much hesitation, let her in. She sat in my living room and started apologizing, explaining that it had been the worst decision of her life, that she didn't know what she was thinking, that she had idealized our parents, and that she had been selfish and cruel to me. She cried and begged me to forgive her, that she needed me, that I was the only real thing she had in her life. I'm not going to lie. Part of me wanted to hug her and tell her everything was okay, but it wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. I told her I appreciated her apology, but that I needed time, that I couldn't just forget what she had done, that she had broken my heart in a way I didn't know if I could heal from. I told her that I had felt completely invisible, like all those years of sacrifice hadn't meant anything. She understood, or at least said she understood, and she left. She promised me she would give me the space I needed, but that she hoped someday we could fix things. About 2 months passed without us talking. I went to therapy because I needed to process all this with someone, neutral, who wasn't my friends, who were already tired of hearing me talk about the same thing. My therapist helped me understand that I had a right to be angry, to feel betrayed, but that I also had to decide if I wanted to keep Victoria in my life or not, because living in this limbo wasn't healthy for either of us. Lauren told me that Christopher eventually contacted Victoria to apologize for how he handled the situation at the wedding. He admitted that making that public speech had been wrong, that he should have talked to her privately, but that he didn't regret canceling the wedding because he couldn't marry someone who had demonstrated those values. They met for coffee to have some closure. Victoria explained that she had been seeing a therapist too, that she was working on her abandonment issues and understanding why she had made those decisions. Christopher told her he appreciated that she was working on herself, but that he needed time to think about whether he wanted to give her another chance or not. About 10 months after all the drama, Lauren wrote to tell me that Christopher and Victoria had started talking again, that they had been going to couples therapy together, and that they were trying to rebuild their relationship. They weren't going to get married yet. In fact, Christopher had been very clear that if they ever got married, it would be after a long time and a lot of work, but that they loved each other and wanted to try. She asked me how I felt about it, and honestly, I didn't know what to feel. I was glad Victoria was finding some happiness, but it also hurt not to be part of that. About 3 months ago, Victoria wrote me a long message asking me to meet in person. She said she had been working a lot in therapy, that she understood the damage she had caused me, and that she didn't expect me to forgive her immediately, but that she wanted to start rebuilding our relationship if I was willing. I hesitated a lot. Like I spent 2 weeks thinking about what to do. But in the end, I agreed. We met in a neutral park. Neither of us wanted to be at the other's house for this conversation. When I saw her, she looked better than the last time. Healthier. Although I could still see the weight of everything that had happened on her face. We talked for hours. She explained to me that throughout her life, she had felt this void from not having our parents. That when they came back, she felt like she could finally fill that void. And that in her head, she thought that if she did everything perfectly, if she was the perfect daughter, they would never leave again. She admitted that she knew it was wrong to exclude me, that every day that passed before the wedding she felt worse about it, but that she was so trapped in this fantasy of a perfect family that she couldn't see beyond it. She told me she completely understood if I could never forgive her, but that she was going to spend the rest of her life trying to make it up to me somehow. I told her everything I had been keeping inside. All the nights I cried, thinking about how she had thrown me away like garbage. All the times I questioned whether everything I had done for her had been worth it. All the years of my life I sacrificed so she could have a better life. I told her I had felt used, like I had only been useful when she needed me but disposable when she had better options. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just told her the raw and honest truth. She just listened. Didn't try to defend herself, just accepted everything I said and said I was right about everything. I don't know exactly when it happened, but at some point in that conversation, something broke inside me. Or maybe it settled. I'm not sure. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I didn't see the 4-year-old who had betrayed me. I saw the 2-year-old who held my hand when she was scared, the 0-year-old who cried for our grandparents, the teenager who hugged me when I was exhausted from working so much. I saw all the love we had shared, everything we had overcome together, and I realized I didn't want to lose that forever, even though in that moment everything was broken. I told her I couldn't promise her that things would go back to the way they were before, that they probably would never be like before, but that I was willing to try to rebuild something new, something different. I made it clear to her that it was going to take time, a lot of time, and that there were going to be moments when I was going to be angry and resentful and that she would have to accept that. She said she understood, that she accepted any conditions, that she just wanted to have me in her life somehow. Since then, we've been seeing a family therapist together, like once every 2 weeks. It's hard, I'm not going to lie. There are sessions where I leave angrier than when I went in because we process very painful things, but there are also moments where we remember good times and laugh like before, even if it's just for a second. Christopher and she are still together. In fact, he called me a month ago to apologize to me too, for not having investigated more about our family situation before. He said he should have known his girlfriend's family better. I told him it wasn't his fault, that Victoria had lied to him, but I appreciated the gesture. Our parents, of course, disappeared again. According to what I learned from some uncles, they moved to another state a few months ago. Said something about starting over somewhere else. They didn't say goodbye to Victoria, didn't give her explanations, they just left. She says it doesn't hurt as much as she thought it would, that in therapy she's been working on accepting that they simply don't have the capacity to be the parents she needed, and that's okay. That she already has people who really love her. I don't know if she's really accepted all that, or if she's just saying what her therapist tells her to say, but I want to believe it's true. Last week, Victoria invited me to dinner at her apartment with her and Christopher. It was weird but also nice. We cooked together like we used to when she lived with me, and for a moment it almost felt normal. Almost felt like before. Almost. Christopher is good to her. I can see that. And I can see that she's trying to be a better person, to be more aware of her actions and how they affect others. She asked me if she could start calling me more often again, and I said yes, that we could try to have more regular contact again, but without pressure, without expectations that everything is already fixed. I don't know what's going to happen with us in the long run, honestly. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust her completely like before. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forget the pain of not being at her wedding, of being excluded from one of the most important moments of her life. But what I do know is that despite everything, despite the pain and betrayal and all the horrible things that happened, she's still my sister. She's still that little 2-year-old who needed me. Only now she's an adult who made a terrible mistake and is trying to make amends. And I guess that has to be worth something, right? Yesterday, she sent me a message that said, "Thank you for not giving up on me. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm grateful anyway." I didn't respond immediately because I still don't know what to say. I'm still processing everything. There are still days when I wake up angry about what happened. But I think eventually I'm going to respond. I think eventually we're going to be okay. Or at least we're going to be better than now. It's not going to be the fairy tale ending where everything gets fixed perfectly and we're best friends again. But maybe, just maybe, we can build something new on all these broken pieces. And that, for now, is enough to keep trying.